The knock came just after sunrise, sharp enough to cut through the thin quiet of my first morning in the new house. I was still barefoot, still learning the rhythm of the floorboards, when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the camera. 2 figures stood on my porch. Maisie, and behind her, gripping a faded duffel bag like it held her last breath, my mother, Loretta. 11 years without a call. 11 years without a birthday card, a text, or even the dignity of a forwarded condolence whenever someone in the family passed. And now they were standing on my porch in Richmond, Virginia, as if I had invited them for breakfast. Beside the door, on the narrow entry table, waited the folder I had set there the night before. A cousin had called me earlier in the week, voice low, as if speaking treason. "They are asking around for your address, Colette, and it sounds urgent. Be careful." Urgent always meant the same thing with them. They wanted something. I picked up the folder and opened the door no wider than 2 inches, enough for them to see my face, not enough for them to step inside. Maisie exhaled like she had been holding her breath for years. "Finally. I thought you were ignoring us." Ignoring her. As if the weight of silence had been my creation alone. I kept my voice steady. "You are not expected." Loretta shifted forward, her expression already arranged into mourning. "Colette, honey, we need a place to land for a little while. That is all. A few weeks, maybe less." She glanced over my shoulder into the house. "This place looks big enough for all of us." Her phrasing struck me the same way it always had entitlement dressed up as desperation. Maisie stepped closer to the opening in the door. "We got pushed out of the rental. The landlord sold the property. We had 30 days. You did not answer any of my emails. I never received an email." I said. Her eyes flickered just enough for me to know she had not expected a direct contradiction. Loretta interjected softly. "We are family. You have room. We do not." I lifted the folder slightly, letting the edge catch the light between us. Rules, boundaries, written lines I should have drawn a decade ago. Maisie stared at it. "What is that supposed to be?" "My conditions," I said. "If you want to come inside, everything in this folder has to be acknowledged, signed, respected." A thin, incredulous laugh escaped her. "You are making us sign paperwork." "Are you serious?" Loretta pressed a hand to her chest. "We came to you because we believed you still had a heart." Power had shifted. I felt it, quiet and solid, just from the simple act of telling the truth out loud. "I am not inviting you in," I said. "I am giving you the terms. That is all." Maisie's jaw tightened. "People online are going to hear about this. You think they will be on your side?" There, it was her real weapon. I breathed once. Slow. "You may tell whoever you like." For a moment, only the cicadas answered us. Then I stepped back, set the folder on the entry table where they could still see it, and closed the door. Not slammed, just closed. My phone buzzed again, rapid messages lighting up the screen. I ignored them for now and walked toward the kitchen, the quiet settling around me like a choice finally made. If you are listening to this and it stirs something familiar, if it feels a little too close to your own story, tell me where you are hearing it from. I want to know how far these kinds of families reach, and how many of us are finding new doors we no longer have to open. I used to believe our old house in Petersburg held its breath when things went wrong. The air would tighten, the walls would listen, and every sound meant something. I learned early to measure danger by silence. Maisie never had to learn that. I was wiping down the kitchen table one summer afternoon, maybe 15 years old when she wandered in, barefoot, hair tangled, carrying the kind of exhaustion only a pampered child could afford. "Mom says you were supposed to finish the laundry," she announced, like she was reading a weather report. I kept wiping. "I already did." She blinked. "Then why is she saying you did not?" Because Mom always believed the version of the story that made Maisie innocent. But I only said, "Ask her." Maisie shrugged, drifting toward the fridge. She is upset. You should calm her down. That was the pattern. My responsibility. Her comfort. Later that same day, Loretta appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, voice carrying a false sweetness. Colette, darling, your sister is overwhelmed again. I need you to take her to her summer class. I did that yesterday. I said, well, she replied, she needs you again. You know how delicate she is. Delicate. The word that had excused everything for most of her life. Maisie stepped out from behind her, eyes wide, lips pressed together like she was suffering through a tragedy. I do not feel steady, she whispered. Loretta touched her shoulder. See, she needs you. I grabbed my keys because fighting never worked, and because any protest became proof that I lacked compassion. Loretta always found a way to twist resistance into cruelty. As we walked to the car, Maisie said, you make things harder than they need to be. I glanced at her. How you ask too many questions. You do not just do what Mom asks. I said nothing, but something inside me tightened an early warning, a small fracture that would grow in time. Years later, when I look back, that moment is the one that stands out. Not the shouting matches, not the slammed doors, but the softness, the easy assumption that my life existed to make hers smoother. The signs had been there long before the day she brought home my car with the bumper crushed and her story ready-made. Long before I learned how blame can be passed down like an heirloom. Long before I understood that in our family. I had been raised to serve the story, not the truth. The shift did not happen in one dramatic moment. It arrived through small, quiet lessons, each one nudging me into a role I never agreed to play. I remember standing at the living room doorway one evening while Loretta clicked her tongue in disappointment, holding an empty envelope that had once held $20 meant for Maisie's school trip. Colette, she said, you were the last one near the kitchen drawer. I was 14. I had been looking for batteries. That was all. I did not take anything. I said. Maisie was curled on the couch, knees tucked under her chin. She did not look at me when she whispered, I just do not understand why these things keep happening to me. The room tilted. The shift was subtle but decisive. Loretta's face softened at the sound of Maisie's voice, then hardened when she looked at me. Your sister is upset, she said, and you are making this about yourself. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Maisie's breath hitched, and Loretta rushed to her side. There, she murmured. We will sort it out. Sort it out always meant assigned to me. Weeks later, another lesson arrived. I was already running late for work when Maisie burst into the hallway, jacket half-zipped, voice trembling. I missed the bus, she said, because you were hogging the bathroom. I had been in the bathroom for 5 minutes. She had spent 20 styling her hair, but Loretta appeared behind her, expression tight with accusation. Colette, you know your sister gets anxious when she feels rushed. Maisie let out a shaky breath, the kind that pressed every guilt button Loretta had ever taught her to use. I am not trying to blame you, Maisie said softly. I just wish you would think about how your actions affect me. My actions. Always mine. Later that year came the moment that finally carved the truth into me. Maisie had borrowed my old Corolla for a quick errand. When she returned, the bumper was crushed inward and a scar of white paint dragged across the side. She rushed inside ahead of me, voice already wavering as she said, Mom, something happened. By the time I walked into the kitchen, Loretta was gripping Maisie's hands as if she were consoling a victim of a crime. I told her she should not have been driving that old thing. Loretta said, Colette, how could you let this happen? I was not even with her. I replied. Maisie looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. I just felt unsafe. The road was narrow. I panicked. You know how I get. Her panic became my fault. Her choices became my negligence. Her mistakes became my burden. And in that moment, with their eyes fixed on me as if I had caused the accident myself, something settled inside my chest, heavy, cold, final. The truth did not matter. Only the story did. I left 3 days after the car incident. No screaming, no announcement, no dramatic exit. I packed 2 bags, filled my tank, and drove north toward Richmond before dawn. Loretta stood in the doorway as I loaded the last bag, her arms folded like she was the one being abandoned. "You will regret this," she said quietly. "Family is not something you walk away from." Maisie appeared beside her, clutching a blanket around her shoulders. "You are being selfish," she whispered. "You are leaving us when we need you most." I did not answer either of them. Talking had never changed anything. I drove until the thorn house disappeared behind trees and mist. For a while, I believed the distance might soften things. Maybe Loretta would think about how she had treated me. Maybe Maisie would learn to stand on her own. Maybe someone would call just to ask if I had made it safely. What came instead were messages from extended relatives, all carrying the same tone. "Your mother is devastated. Maisie is heartbroken. You did not have to run away like that." I tried correcting one aunt. Just one. I did not run away. I wrote, "I left because the situation was unhealthy." Her reply came instantly. "Unhealthy. You always exaggerate." After that, I stopped explaining. In Richmond, I rented a studio the size of a storage unit and took whatever work I could find: a dawn barista shift, an evening office cleaning job, a midnight baking slot at a shared kitchen on the industrial edge of the city. I rarely slept more than 4 hours, but the exhaustion felt clean. Earned. Mine. Meanwhile, the family narrative tightened like a net. Maisie posted sorrowful updates online, cryptic lines about betrayal, healing, and being left behind by the people she trusted most. She never used my name, but everyone knew who she meant. Cousins forwarded her posts to me, sometimes with a sad emoji, sometimes with a prayer. One message read, "She is so strong, surviving all you have put her through." I deleted it and turned back to my mixing bowl. The silence between us grew into something solid, something that required effort to break. Birthdays passed, holidays. Loretta changed her number without sending the new one. A cousin got married and mentioned during her speech that some people lose their way and forget their roots. I learned to stop expecting invitations. I learned to stop hoping for clarity. And somewhere in those 11 years, the distance became its own kind of home. My nights in Richmond began inside a drafty warehouse kitchen, the kind of place where the lights hummed louder than the mixers. I rented the midnight slot because it was the cheapest, and because no one else wanted it. It meant solitude. And for a long time, that was the only thing I trusted. The first month, I baked small batches for coworkers who paid in crumpled bills and loose change. One night, after I handed over a box of pecan bars, the manager of the building poked his head into the kitchen. "You trying to build something?" he asked. "I am trying to stay afloat," I said. He nodded as if he understood more than I intended to reveal. Not everything went smoothly. One weekend, the freezer failed and wiped out an entire week's worth of dough. I sat on the floor with my back against the metal door, staring at the ruined ingredients. A fellow renter, a man named Jonah who prepped meal kits in the evenings, stepped into the doorway. "You look like you just got hit by a truck," he said. "I just lost more than $200 in ingredients," I replied. "I cannot afford this." Jonah crouched beside me. Nobody grows a business without losing something first. I wanted to believe him, but the panic in my chest felt louder than any hope. A month later, a corporate order I had relied on collapsed the morning of delivery. The coordinator called me while I was boxing pastries. "We went with another vendor," she said flatly. "Someone cheaper." When I hung up, my hands trembled. I whispered to myself, "I cannot keep doing this." But I kept packing the boxes anyway. Muscle memory often carried me when confidence could not. Still, The orders doubled, then tripled. Word spread through offices and break rooms. People liked the taste of something made in the middle of the night. The real shift came during a neighborhood event when a representative from a small 12-location cafe chain tried one of my bourbon pecan bars. She looked up with her eyebrows raised. "Who made this?" she asked. "I did. You free to talk business next week." Her offer was not huge, but it was consistent weekly deliveries, reliable pay, and a chance at something stable. When I signed the contract, my hands shook, not with fear this time, but with something steadier. 2 years later, I stepped into a modest 2-story home in Richmond priced just under $400,000. It was not luxurious, but it was mine. Every square foot had been earned through sweat, exhaustion, and choices no one else witnessed. As I stood in the empty living room, I whispered, "This is the life I built." I did not know it would also be the life that pulled my family back to my doorstep. It did not take long to learn why Maisie and Loretta had shown up on my porch with bags packed and eyes full of expectation. A cousin from back home called me the night after their visit, his voice lowered like someone might overhear him through the phone. "They lost the rental," he said. "The owner sold the house out from under them." I leaned against the counter. "When 30 days ago," he replied. "They had a month to move, and they spent most of it arguing instead of packing." That sounded right. Chaos always found a way to stay central in their lives. "There is more," he added. "You should hear it from me before they twist it." I waited, breathing steadily. Maisie got tangled up in one of those online coaching scams, paid nearly $6,000 for some course that promised she would launch her dream life. Then another $5,000 for so-called mentoring. They drained their savings trying to fix it. Of course. Maisie had always believed in promises that glowed too brightly. "They thought you would help," he said. "Because you bought a house. People talk. Colette. Word got around that you finally made it. Finally made it." The phrase sat uncomfortably on my tongue, as if struggle had been my natural state and stability was a temporary violation. He hesitated. "They really believe you owe them." I closed my eyes. I figured. "And, look, I should probably mention this. Loretta keeps telling people that you abandoned them. So when they show up at your door, everyone acts like it is your responsibility to take them in." I exhaled, slow and steady. "Thank you for telling me. I just do not want you blindsided," he said. "They think they can live with you. Indefinitely." The call ended, but his words stayed with me as I moved through the house, touching walls that did not hold any of their memories, turning on lights they had never switched off, stepping across floors they had never walked. Later that evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, my phone buzzed again this time with a message from an unknown number. "Maisie, we need to talk. Be reasonable. Reasonable." A word they only used when they wanted me to surrender my boundaries. Another message followed. "Loretta family should help family. Remember who raised you." I placed the phone face down. They had come not because they missed me, or because something in the past had shifted. They had come because they assumed my stability still belonged to them. And for the first time in my life, I had something they wanted. The next morning, they returned before I finished my coffee. I heard the gravel shift under their shoes, then the soft, rehearsed knock. I did not rush. I let the knock come again, sharper this time, before I opened the door the same 2 inches as before. Maisie stood closest, chin lifted like she was bracing for applause. "We need to come inside," she said. "There is no point dragging this out." Behind her, Loretta folded her arms across her chest. "You are being dramatic." "Colette, just let us in so we can talk like adults." I kept my hand braced on the door. "We will talk here." Maisie scoffed. "On the porch." "Really? You think we are strangers? Strangers would have been easier." I reached behind me, lifted the manila folder, and held it where they could see. "Before anything else, you need to understand what this means." Loretta frowned. "Paperwork for your own family." "Yes." I said, because the last time I trusted your words, it cost me 11 years. A flicker of irritation passed over her face, gone as quickly as it came. You left us. Do not rewrite history. I did not rewrite anything. I replied, I survived it. Maisie leaned closer, lowering her voice as if she could intimidate me with softness. We have nowhere to go. Colette, nowhere, and you have a whole house to yourself. Do you know how selfish that looks? You had 30 days to find a place, I said. You chose not to. That is not fair, she snapped. I was dealing with real trauma, the scam. You paid over $11,000 to someone who promised to fix your life, I said, and when that fell apart, you came to me. Her mouth tightened. You are enjoying this, finally having the upper hand. There is no upper hand, I said. There are boundaries. Loretta stepped forward then. Her voice dipped in something meant to sound maternal. Colette, I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you girls. And now, when I need a place to rest my head, you slam the door in my face. I have never slammed anything, I said quietly. I am simply not opening it. All this, she whispered, gesturing to the house behind me, because you want to punish us. I placed the folder on the console table behind me. These are the terms: a guest license, a trespass warning drafted by an attorney, and a record of every debt and decision that led us here. If you want to stay even temporarily, you sign everything. If not, you leave. Maisie's voice rose, brittle with rage. I will tell everyone what you are doing. They will tear you apart online. I nodded once. You already started. Her breath caught. Loretta looked at me like she was trying to resurrect the obedient daughter she remembered. You owe us compassion. No, I said. I owe myself peace. And then I closed the door. Not louder, not softer, just final. The first blow landed before they even left my driveway. My phone buzzed with a notification from a cousin's group chat, a photo of my front porch, taken from an angle only someone standing on it could capture. In the image, the door was cracked open, my silhouette faint in the gap. Maisie had posted it with a caption that read, "When your own sister locks you out during your darkest hour." Underneath were comments already multiplying. Unbelievable. Family should come first. Praying for you. Sweetheart. Another notification followed this one from an aunt who had not spoken to me in a decade. She had shared the post publicly and tagged me. Money changes people. I set the phone down, heart steady in a way it had never been when dealing with them. The familiar script was unfolding exactly as they wanted: Maisie as the wounded lamb, Loretta as the long-suffering mother, me as the cold-hearted daughter who had forgotten her roots. The phone vibrated again, and again, and again. Cousins I barely remembered sent paragraphs. You should be ashamed. She is your sister. Everyone is talking about this. You need to fix it before it gets worse. I opened a blank email instead. To every relative whose contact I still had. Subject: boundaries. I wrote plainly, each line shaped with the calm I had earned the hard way. Communication will take place through email only. No discussions regarding housing or financial support. No emotional accusations will be acknowledged. Harassment will be documented. I reread the message once, not to soften it, just to ensure it was clear. Then I pressed send. The phone lit up with replies almost instantly, but I did not open them. I slid the device across the table, letting it vibrate itself into exhaustion. Their narrative had traveled fast, but so had my boundary, and for the first time, I felt the power shift toward me and stay there. 2 weeks passed before I heard from either of them again. I had almost convinced myself they would keep their distance, at least long enough to rebuild another story about me. But one night, while I was labeling pastry boxes for the cafe chain, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Maisie. I need help finding work. Just information. Nothing else. I stared at the message. No blame. No tears. No accusation slipped between the lines. It felt strange enough that I waited a full minute before typing back. I can send you some places hiring. That is all I can offer. She replied instantly, as if she had been gripping the phone for hours. Maisie. Thank you. 2 words. No ornaments. I sent her a list of agencies, grocery stores, and service jobs that kept flexible hours. I did not dress it up with advice. I did not ask how she had been. I did not offer anything beyond what I chose to give. She did not respond. Not that night. Not the next morning. I assumed she had slipped back into silence. 3 weeks later, a photo arrived from the same number. No text attached. In it, Maisie stood in the break room of a grocery store, wearing a navy blue apron and a badge clipped to her collar. Her hair was pulled back in a way I had never seen practical. No drama. Her eyes looked tired, but there was something steadier underneath, a quietness that did not beg to be seen. I did not reply, but I saved the photo. A few nights after that, while scrubbing the mixing bowls, I replayed our brief exchange in my head. Not because I believed it meant a reunion, not because I felt obligated to interpret it, just because the world had shifted slightly. Maisie had taken one small step into her own life, and for the first time, it was not at my expense. 6 months after the showdown on my porch, Loretta emailed me for the first time in more than a decade without a single accusation between the lines. I would like to see your home. Once. Only me. I answered with the same clarity I had practiced a day, an hour, no overnight stay, no discussion about money or housing. She replied with a simple, understood. When she arrived, she did not bring bags, just a small purse and the hesitant pause of someone stepping into unfamiliar territory. I held the door open, not wide, just enough, and she walked in without speaking. She moved slowly through the kitchen, brushing her fingers along the counter I had installed myself. Her eyes lingered on the rows of labeled jars, the stacked baking trays, the absence of clutter. You keep things neat, she said. I keep things manageable, I replied. She nodded, almost to herself. You always liked order. I never understood why. That is because chaos worked for you, I said softly. Her shoulders tightened, but she did not argue. She stepped into the living room, taking in the space that had cost me years of work, years of distance, years of learning who I was without her. We sat at the kitchen table. She looked at the plates set neatly in the cabinet behind me. You have enough for a full table, she murmured. For the people who choose to be here, I said. Something fragile passed over her face. Recognition, maybe, or the faint awareness of a cost she had never calculated. When she stood to leave, she paused at the doorway, placing her hand lightly on the frame the way she used to when checking for dust. I thought, she said slowly, that you needed me to tell you who you were. Turns out you needed me to stop. I did not reply. I let her walk back to her car without commentary or closure. The door closed behind her with no weight attached. Later that evening, while cleaning the mixer, I spoke toward the quiet room, toward anyone listening out there who might understand. If any part of this feels familiar to you, you are not alone. Tell me where you are hearing this from. Sometimes knowing who is out there makes the next boundary easier to draw.